โอเค
โอเคครับ
So good afternoon, everyone. So today is the second day of our online webinar. So today we're going to have two presentations by two fantastic Thai artists, Piyawat Louilarpprasert and Thanapat Ogaslert. So Piyawat, are you ready?
โอเคครับ
Can you give me like 2 minutes, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay. On this time, Real, nice to meet you again.
Thanks for having. Looking forward.
Yeah. The topic is going to be interesting, right?
Yeah.
Looking forward to that too.
Okay, thank you very much for all for waiting. So welcome. I'm very happy to give some presentation about my recent works. So I would like to just start to share my slide. So today it's a kind of important topic, like at the moment, like about since our project, together with Japan Foundation is about the exploration in culture. So I would like to give a presentation about composing culture, which reflect to one of my recent work called Ohm-Na-Mo. So that's just like current work. So I would like to share a little bit of background of myself, like briefly. So myself, I'm working like starting with being a trombonist, musician, play a lot of music for orchestra, some film, some pop like stuff. And then I went to start to learn more about the contemporary aspect as a composer. And then after that, it's kind of like a lot of amalgamation between, oh, I'm now a trombonist, I'm now a composer. Sometimes I improvise myself with some materials, and I do myself as a maker as well, like creating instrument, building some network connection as a curator. So like five functions kind of like merging together and like become myself. So I would call it as a kind of collective process, which I will explore more later in the presentation. So sometimes for artists, for very important about the resident, right? The residencies where I live. So I born in Thailand until 2015, and then I went to some activity in Germany, like for new music in Darmstadt music course, and then I went to England, for my master's studies for 2 years, where I, absorb and learn a lot of cultural diversity in European countries. And then I was in a composer resident program at Kuta Kontakt residency at Austria. And then straight away to Cornell University for my current PhD education, where I also work as freelancing and also doing, a lot of network. So my praxis, like for people who already know me, so I quite believe in sound. So like I think I'm kind of contributor of something, which is the important is about what you hear, what you experience. So as a performer, like as a trombonist, as an improviser, so I work with like how we can develop the sound more with our identity, right? So I mean with my practice, I'm quite specialized into being a trombonist, being an improviser, building some objects, being some kind of like engineer in the parentheses, like working with machine. And then of course working on technological usages, like when we say technology, it doesn't have to be only like computer, right? It could be like rock, it could be like fire, it could be something like around us, could be analog, could be digital. So it led me to explore things with kind of like instrumental extension, like hacking, like thinking about, oh, I'm a composer performer, how I can develop my own equipment, right? My own tools. So I start to hack them, start to make extension, and then it led me again. It's kind of like connection, as you can see. Um, Led me to think about the exploration of multi-directional of sounds, like because sound is not only what you hear, but sometimes you see it as well, sometimes you feel it, sometimes you smell it, right? So it's kind of like multi sensories that you can perceive the sounds. And then the last thing is very important for today. So it led me to find the diversity in instrumental formats and the culture, like how we encounter writing orchestra with new sounds, or how we encounter with writing something different, something is not music at all, but we make it sonically happen. So this is myself like 3 years ago. I was a bit chubby, and I was playing my tubes in New York. Like it's my kind of first exploration, to work with myself, find the sound that I believe, find the sound that I'm interested, and start to research on that. After that, like it's more like not only play the musical instrument, but more likely mechanic instrument. It could be like my three friends heads with motors, some DIY contact microphone, and so on. Some multimedia, working with our friends Sergio Cote and Piso, like working like sound diversity with the multimedia format. And then this is like the recent work as well, working with Thanapat, who's here today, and probably he will talk more about innovation for the next presentation. And yeah, so I just cross out all the unnecessarily topic for today. But the most important thing is about the culture. Okay, so when we talk about culture, what is culture? I'm kind of skeptical about this too. Like when I Google, you know, when I Google about culture, the definition, it could be something about the identity. It could be something about social habits. It's something like people join together, create something together, about cultivation, like how one self or one group of tribe people like create arts, create scene, create social impact, with creativity, and it create languages, right? So this is kind of like many keywords, like for me to start, like what is really culture? So for me, culture is something that it doesn't have to be establishment, but something that you feel familiar to it, something that you have practiced, you have, engaged with that. Like as a composer, my culture, let's say my culture is like writing, right? My culture is like listening. So like for Thai, what is Thai, right? Like we talked about yesterday, like the definition of Thai, it's like kind of like free, right? Like try to free the anatomy, right? Uh, Autonomy, sorry, try to free the autonomy and authorship, right? So I kind of like try to research a bit, like, oh, this is the X, right? The map of the Thailand, like thinking like, oh, what is geography in Thailand? We have some food, like very traditional food. I'm not sure, but we have some kind of temple. We have some kind of like dance. But then I don't know. I still like figure out like what is really Thai, which is I still don't know. And then I watch some Muay Thai, uh, and then I kind of fascinated with the gesture, the behavior when the a person who go boxing, they have like he probably right he usually have to make the ritual to make a memorial to their teacher, right, before going to the fight. But then I can see that there's a lot of culture in action, right? There is a culture in behaviors that express through the body, through the, the um, kind of, it's a statement, right? Like, hey, we're gonna do boxing now. I'm gonna do this to make the introduction. It's an overture, right? So then this is the based from true story. So it's a kind of like the inspiration for me to write the piece called Ohm-Na-Mo, which is commissioned by the Neueschingen Musiktage and performed by Omnibus Ensemble with the direction of Achom Kim. So I still don't say correctly like what is culture, what is Thai, what is whatever, but we will explore together, okay, for today. So for the piece, is Ohm-Na-Mo is for Omnibus Ensemble, and I have been working like since last like March until like July. So the idea, like as I mentioned before, it's come from the curiosity in culture, and then it goes through kind of making the statement from the thoughts in Muay Thai, right? Like something about behaviors. So there's a lot of fragments here, a lot of keywords, like when I mentioned to you before. So I call it as collective ideas. So something that when you think about something, when you get into on the bus, on the SkyTrain, you wait, you take some time to go to work, and you wait, and then you something like go to your brain, something go to your mind. A lot of like fragmentations like happen. So it happened to me for this piece. So it's called collective ideas among the concept of like Buddhism, Muay Thai, traditional musical elements, and the environmental experience. It's a lot of like cloudy. It's a lot of things that um, overlapping each other. So it leads me to think about that this is kind of like reinterpretation in cultures, like through like the exploration in gesture, like I mentioned before about the Muay Thai, the kick, the boxing, like some vocalization when one guy hit another guy, there's some like some reaction from the audience. So it's kind of like improvisation at the same time, and like in contrary, there's some kind of meditation happen, like like when people feel constant in the experience. So it's a kind of like, as you can see now, I have too many materials already to talk to you guys. Like there's a lot of thoughts, there's a lot of small ideas, fragments. So it creates a kind of amalgamation, between sound, thoughts, and theater. So so this is a kind of three things that are really important for this work. And then the last thing, the fourth thing, which is I didn't think it before until I worked with Omnibus Ensemble, which is amazing ensemble from Uzbekistan. So it's about close collaboration. Like sometimes composer like live in the room, write, like spend a year, decades, like write music, and then it's only one way communication to them, to her, him, themselves, right? But once I work with closely with the ensemble, it creates such an impact composition to my life. So what I'm gonna tell you now is that I have been written a piece, like a single piece, Om-Na-Mo, for like the complete piece is 25 minutes. But then when I met them, Archon Kim, who's a director, he has like the idea about the collective composition, which means we have four composers who got commissioned by the Neueschingen Musiktage, and then they try to merge four pieces together as one big piece, like 70 minutes. Okay, that's a kind of like, oh, something. Okay, so maybe like talk. This is kind of like a structure of my work. Like have 5 movements, but it's not gonna reorder like this. It's gonna be reordered in something else. So this is kind of briefly like I have been thinking about 5 different behaviors from inspiration from Muay Thai. Om Pian, Om-Na-Mo, mantra, trance. Okay, so this is kind of like analytical things a little bit. Like, so I have been working on some research on the characteristic of Thai traditional music, right? It could, like sometime when Thai music happens, there are some characters like uan, like something like bending pitches, something like in Thai music we have a lot of tremolo. Like for example, like we have JK, we have like like all the plucking instrument, a lot of tremolo, right? And when they have tremolo, they do a kind of like bouncing gesture, right? It's called sabat, right? So it's kind of like repeated appoggiatura, right? And then like have more different characters like ki, like kind of like more improvisation, some kind of brood is mean like glissandi, kind of proms like trills with like magnitude, kran is like more like vibrato but with improvisation, and like donsot it means free improvisation, which is very important to this work because it happened a lot in the Muay Thai situation. Like you find all of this gesture in there. So okay, so before we start, maybe I would like to present you some of my interview from the festival. So maybe we can watch it a little bit. I think this is a special project because we have a process called collective composition. If played individually, the whole piece is like 20 minutes, 5 movements. Each movement has like different characters. But then like after rehearsing with them, having thoughts like, like mixing, cut some part, like I got cut some like bunch of whole part, but still like, it becomes another version of the piece. So I found that this process makes me think about what composers doing right now, and this is a 2 minds like between I'm being a composer and the second is I'm being a contributor of sound. Om-Na-Mo in time, it's a kind of magic spell, like casting, like when you want to pray for your wish, like you say like Om Om Om, like please be there, So like if you sit at home, maybe you can think about the sound that goes to you, your body, your ears. I like very much when the piece of music become a big environment, like I become like a soundscape, as the idea that I try to say like Om, like it becomes something unusual. That's it. So I mean, another of me already tell you like what is a piece is, right? From the interview. So okay, so the collective composition. Okay, so what is that, right? So like after, as you can see in the video, right, there's so many things, right? They have like strings, they have people walking around, they have a lot of like melodies, they have a lot of pitches, they have a lot of characters in terms of like the musical ideas. And then the collective composition provide us possibilities of expression. Sometimes, like it's kind of too simple, right? To just say like, hey, today I'm hungry, I want to eat this. One sentence, done, right? But this um, collective process lead us to express anything that we think at that time. A lot of ideas just boom, like you know on the plate. It's a kind of like, this is, I want to borrow the word neuron process from Achon Kim, the director of the ensemble. So the ensemble have been working together like 18, like 20 years, I think. And then they kind of connect with each other without any talking. Like there's some kind of like body language, there's some kind of like action, which they have been through the same culture. This is come back to the word culture. Like they have been working in the same environment and think in a different way, and then be in as a family, right? So there's a kind of neuron process now. Is like once one person think, another person start to understand, and another person start to react as a chain reaction, right? So it's like there's a lot of things happening right now, and once you understand, another one understand, it creates kind of like the environment of the collective environment. Like you start to collect more ideas from one and another one. And then for this piece, like when we were in the festival, there's so many provocative comments, feedbacks, because like some people would say, I don't know what is which piece is who from who. Because like we have 4 pieces and we shop many things, and then we put 4 pieces together as one big piece. I will show you the structure later, okay? So it creates a kind of challenge for the authorship, right? So most of European tradition, like composer like Beethoven, like, like that kind of feeling about a piece, the score is like a Bible, right? And the composer is a God, somehow like that. But then with this idea, it's kind of like challenge, like, okay, who is the composer? Who is the owner of the sound? Who is the owner of the score? So it's kind of like, I think something for us to think, like what is happening in our culture right now, right? There's a lot of credits, right? There's a lot of claiming. So we will talk about it after this, okay? And then it creates kind of like multifunctionalities, like, like once performer could be improviser, could be composer as well, because they can, work with our materials, which create kind of like the networking between sound, theater. And I think the most important thing is about, this is a moment of sharing. It's like a team working, right? It's like, it would be more fun for composer, not just like, oh, I write a new piece, very famous ensemble play for me, one time, done. Right? There's no more connection after that. But this is like, this collaboration is kind of important, like it kind of special to me. Like it leads me to have a moment of working together. Like I have been with them like every day since I land to Donau-Eschingen, like 10 to 10, 10 o'clock in the morning to 10 p.m. Like we work together, we rehearse, we have a lot of process. Here is the process. So we start, from the initial plan was like drafting ideas, talking about languages, creating some notation. I will show you in a minute. and then it's kind of exchanging culture. We because like the COVID situation, we couldn't meet in person, right? So we have a Google Doc, like Google Drive, and we share materials, share pieces, like among like people, like composers, performers, and then after these two processes, I start to complete a piece, shaping the sound, like writing the piece, and then go to the last collectively together. So this is timeline. This is very interesting. So I got announcement, like got informed about the commission by November, and then we have online meeting in February. Like talking about the idea of collective thing, and then March to July we do kind of collaborative, like exchanging sound files, like scores, and then August, like we kind of realize like, okay, this is a complete piece, what are we gonna do? And then it's a bit pity, like in December we were trying to get in person workshop 10 days to be in Tashkent in Uzbekistan, but it didn't happen because like the COVID. So somehow we still like work like virtually, and then talk in rehearsal, like talking about the collective process, theatrical elements, and improvisation during the time of performance. Like I think like 3 or 4 days before, which is we had 4 performances, okay, from Istanbul, twice in the Neueschingen, and one in Berlin Academy, the Kunst, and four times is like 4 pieces, 4 versions. This is kind of fresh. This is a draft that I made. Let me just like put a pen a little bit. So this is like I send them, a lot of text. Please do this, improvise. Don't worry, you have 30 seconds. Go ahead. And then I record their sounds, and then I start to think like what I can do more about fragmentation, what I can develop from the sound, from the. Sometimes I ask them to improvise. As you can see, this is kind of a hint. I put all their name on the parts. This is very important. It means it's a part for a person. It's very personal. Like if some other person play, he or she or they need permission, and also it's gonna be another piece. So this is like another example of like I have some kind of like pattern, like the pattern, like okay, this is the first pattern, second, third, fourth. Try to make variety above that, and then later I take care about it, after hearing. And then this is very, very fun. So I put a YouTube link, and then I say like, okay, please click to the YouTube link and play with my YouTube link, and then like I also like give them some instruction, like how, like to create the music that react to the YouTube link that I give. It's kind of like giving back and forth, right? Like normally composer give notes and like, hey, performer, you have to do exact what I want, right? But for this collective process, it's not like that. I give the material. I give, like we like a kind of a chef, in the same restaurant, right? We give materials for them, and then they start to improvise. Some of them start to cut some of my part or like change. There was one of the performer said to me like, Piyawat, I think if you change this part as this way, it's gonna be good. And I said, I don't like it. And then he said, listen it again, and I think you will like it. It's a kind of like forcing, right? But then it created kind of like, oh, actually it's true. When I listen more and more, okay, I start to like it, So it's a kind of like exchanging ideas, right? Like via like virtual meetings or in person sometimes. It's a kind of a lot of, like when you listen something from recordings, it's totally different, right? So why not, right? And then You know, have you seen that? Like, I just want to show. So this is the first draft, right? Like, just improvise, do it, do it, do it. And then this is the score. This is more like simplification, right? More simplified. So it's like more detail, right? Like I start to think more about like one sound to another sound, connection between the character of the tremolo, you know, like from one to another, and then to like some echoes, you know. So there's a chain reaction here. Actually, it come from that improvisation. So what I would say. So is I didn't actually. I would say I composed this piece like 70%, you know, but the 30% come from the performers. You know? So this is kind of like interesting process, and this is one of the movement called Om-Pian, right? So I asked one of the percussionist Ali Beck. I gave him the YouTube link, right, and then he reflect me with something with singing. You know, I didn't invent the singing first in my piece actually, but then he gave me like kind of improvise, like, you know, with like vibra slap, you know, like crotales, and like singing with like the following pitches. So I start to grab it, you know, I start to grab things and then ask him to sing, and of course related to other instruments. And this is the last movement. Actually, you heard it already in the interview. So it's a last movement called Om-Na-Mo. So it's a kind of I like, you know, like honesty. I'm not a big fan of Thai melody. That's why I compose a new one myself. You know, so I start to compose it. 50% material come from the keyboard player. His name is Sanja. So he start to improvise something from my material, and then come up with like the, you know, like the horizontal melodical line, and then I start to rearrange it. You know, I start to like thinking about the microtonal scales. You know, like the pitches that reflect to the bass kalimba bow, something like that, and then it connects to all the harmonic series from strings. Yeah. Yes. So that's all the like, you know, important process, and now it's like it's a together process. I would call it that way. Like rehearsing, performing together. We start to have like brainstorming. After that, add, cut, chop, swap, change, upgrade, downgrade. Everything happened 4 days before the performance. I was super stoked about that because like I was super panicked. Like, where is my piece? There's so many cutting, and then but then like after that, I start to agree, and then what I really surprised is that the ensemble have been researching about each pieces, right? Like for example, my piece is about the Muay Thai, right? About the ritual. So then they start to think, they start to compose the theatrical environment, you know. So this is a kind of result, you know, like we don't have only piece, but we have piece with improvisatory, right? The piece with improvisatory, with the creativity from many sides, like from performers themselves, from myself thinking, like to rethink sometime, to change things, and then I call it as processional work. You know, this is kind of like not related word, but it's come from the a composer named Manos Sangaris. So he's a kind of very good composer, like working with theater, the student of Mauricio Kagel. So he's worked with the, you know, the transition, you know, like the process of transition as the piece. So for us, this, like the process of working is the piece. you know. So I will just copy the link for anyone. Like if you visit like SVR Classic website, you can see the full performance and also the 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 interview. Yes. Okay, so this is a structure. We have 4 composers, right? So this is a bit messy. So we have Hassan, part 1, Anur, 1 piece long because he has short piece, and then Hassan part 2, and then Piyawat part 5, and then Hassan part 3, and then Piyawat again part 5, kind of like matching together. Hini has part 2 first, and then part 4. Okay, too many surprises now, right? And then Hassan come again, like what a part 4, and then Shinyi stop at part 1, and then break to my part 2, 3, 4, which like sometimes incomplete, some part complete, and then end with Hassan with the part 5, and then mine again. It's kind of like popular. I don't know, it's a popular piece maybe, and then like it's just like combined together. So as you can see, as a structure like this, it's messy, right? It's like a lot of like collective things, a lot of fragmented ideas around, but let's see it. As you can see, there's a lot of movement that actually reacted from the sound, the vibration of sound.
Wir hören gleich auch ein paar Textfetzen auf verschiedenen Sprachen. Das ist eines der ältesten Gedichte der Welt von den.
And then you start to have more theatrical elements to support the sound character. So this is the piece. There's 2 pieces here between my piece and Hassan's music. So it's like one melody from Baharian, Arabic, and then combined with my microtonality, and then create this shape. So this is come back to my piece. Yep. So it's as you can see, it creates kind of like the ritual, both visually, right, and sonically. So another examples, it's from the excerpt from my part, like part 2, part 3, part 4, in a row. So as I mentioned about I like to adapt some instruments, so it's here. And then it goes to some part. Yep. So I recommend to watch the whole thing. It's gonna be more impact somehow. And then, as you can see from the sound itself, I want to mention it again. It's like a lot of spatialization happen, right? A lot of sounds like around you, a lot of running notes, a lot of how to say diverse, various sonic soundscapes. I would say, and then after that, it's kind of like make me go through the consequence. I can see a lot of cultural diversity happens into my work. Like from the process of collaboration, it creates endless result of musical possibilities. Like you can start, like, you know, in next time you can start the piece with other composer, and then you can end the piece with other composer. So it's kind of, we can reorder and also redesign the materials that we have. So it create like kind of like multiple, I would say, like in Marvel movies, right? It's like what if? It's a kind of what if happened here, like, because the material, the concrete material is there, but it's about our brain, like how we think, how we interact, how we interpret them, you know, like reformalize them, like how to make it creative, you know, how to make it more different ways. And of course, it's create collaborative process, collective process, and it create archival music. You know, when I say archival, it means it become it becomes a treasure. You know, the musical material itself, and also the process of working together. It becomes the strategies. It becomes like the recorded um, ways of working, right? And of course, moment of sharing. Yes, so this is the perfect time, I think. What time is it? Oh, cool. This is perfect time. So I would like to, you know, open discussion. What do y'all think about the work, or you have any questions, or please, this is the time. Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, thank you very much, Piyawat, for your mesmerizing presentation. I heard of this piece quite a long time ago, since last year, right? Since you get the commission from Donashinkan. But
Yes.
this time I kind of really get to hear it, get to know your background ideas. Very great. So Tanakan, do you have some questions? Okay.
First of all, Piyawat, thank you very much for sharing your music with us. It's very wonderful and very beautiful. Um, since at the very beginning, you were mentioned about the cultures, like the identity and diversity and many things, and we still wonder like what they are. And when you show us about Thai culture, it's something that we still have a question: what is Thai culture? So I have a question, and it's also like related to your work. So, do you think that Thai culture is actually a collective culture of Southeast Asia, since many aspects and contexts of Thai culture are indistinguishable from our neighbor's country?
Thank you for your question. I think it's a complex question. Um, so regarding about your first mentioning about what is Thai culture, um, for me, as you living as a Thai person, is already Thai culture for me, because I you know, like many times when I put a lot of materials together, I put a lot of questions, a lot of keywords, a lot of hints. But sometimes we don't. I don't know. Sometimes I don't think we need to answer that, right? So sometimes, I mean, it the answer, it's really depends on the approach of person, right? Because like if you have a friend who really traditional, really like local, they can say like, okay, Thai means this, you know. But for me, I grew up with American culture. Like, you know, my dad cooked steak for me. Like I never had Thai food before. Like before I was like maybe like 10, I don't know. So I have a different culture already. So but if you ask me what is Thai, I would say Thai culture is more likely developed from the Southeast Asian tradition. You know, like where a lot at in ancient time, like there are a lot of communication, there are a lot of like uh, cultural exchange between people in like Tamil or people from Cambodia, from Myanmar, you know, like at that zone, that have a lot of mixed culture in that time already, you know. There are some Chinese people came and make business at that time. So it's a kind of mixed culture at the beginning for me. If you ask me like what is Thai, I would say like Thai, it's more like a kind of mix in between, you know, like experience that you have and the experience from the environment that you been through. That's a bit subjective somehow, but this is my answer. Like, what is Thai? And the second question, what is the second question about the context? Something.
Yeah, I'm asking like whether it's a collective cultures of you know, like because you mentioned it already that it's the Thai culture itself is based on you know, like different mixes of all the cultures.
Mhm.
And since we cannot, I mean, it's not like we cannot, but it's very difficult for us to say like what is Thai, and that because maybe it's already like one culture.
Yes.
It's multi cultures.
Yes. Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's a great point. So when I say about collective idea, I would say that neither Achon Kim or me invent the process of collectivity. You know, it is in every culture, the collective process. It doesn't have to be only Thai. It's you know, it's already happened into our world. You know, it's already happened into, you know, when you have, how to say, it's already in your brain. This is this is what I want to say, like in the simplest way. It's like, because like your brain already working as the collective archive, right? It's like your brain contain like gigabytes, right? Terabytes, whatever, right? Information, data. It is in here already. So the collective process in my means is that you select what you have and go through the process of making with your selective, you know, with your selected performers, collaborators. You know, it's again, it's like collective performers, collective composers. It's already happened. So this is my simplest answer. I hope it goes to you. But just to be more specific about if you said like if something happened in Thai or not, I would say yes. Like in Thai culture, we already have mix of collection. You know, sometimes look at our shirt, right? The local costume from Thai traditional whatever, right? So it's already have some sense of Indian, right? Have some elements from Chinese. It's already have like, you know, some sound that I use, like for example the oboe, right? The it's like B, right? The like B, Muay Thai, whatever. It's create. It's similar to some other Asian instrument already. So like I wouldn't say it's, oh sorry, I wouldn't say it's the same, okay? But it's some characters that sharing the similarities. So that's my, I think that's my answer. Is it? Am I answer your question somehow?
Yeah, you did. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Real.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for your presentation. It was such an insightful talk, and so glad to be able to hear more about your recent work. I think it's fantastic, absolutely fantastic work, and what you went through in the process of composing with the multiple composers and the creators. I think it is absolutely amazing thing that you've went through, and I'm so happy to be able to kind of learn what you went through and stuff. And you know, there's so many concepts that I jotted down, and which was really, really interesting. Never thought of making the cultures into the sound. And you mentioned about the martial art from Thai, Muay Thai, yeah, taking that, and not just so only the sound that we hear, but just the kind of improvisatory reaction from the audience and everything. And you mentioned that the sound can be observed visually, orally, and also sometimes smell and the feeling. And those are the very interesting things that I learned. And the Thai musical material that you showed, the little chart, the trails, and that's also fascinating to me. Every culture has sort of distinct character in the sound of culture. And you mentioned about the ownership of the sound in this collective composition. Like, there's no only one person who gets to claim this is my piece, and that's like definitely somehow relevant to our society right now, because it's much more diverse, and because of all of our technology and accessibility to this internet, I think it's possible. It's possible to share our creativity with others and make it one sort of single work. And I think it should, we should. I'm a firm believer that we should promote that, to kind of bring people in through such a creativity. And other things that I jotted down, and definitely I would kind of use it, not steal it, but I will probably use some of the ideas for my activities. Just one quick thought or question for you, Piyawat, is that I think Tanaka kind of touched on this, but do you think, so you wrote this piece, or you and your colleagues wrote this piece to this specific ensemble from Uzbekistan. Now, depending on the performers, or depending on the culture of the group, it doesn't have to be the Uzbekistan group, but there is a specific culture in the group, like that they've been together, they've been performing together. Do you think that also affect your, like, how the piece ends up to be presented? In other words, like you mentioned that there are a lot of improvised kind of process in a composition, and in fact, like 4 days before, when you started working with them in person, and they started adding more theatrical stuff. And I would be really curious to kind of witness this piece being performed, for example, like a Thai ensemble, or this piece is being performed by Japanese ensemble, and like, what is your sort of assumption that what's going to happen, like, because
So,
yeah, go ahead, sorry.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. That's great. So it comes back, right? It comes back to the idea of collectivity, right? Because like Omnibus performed this is one version of the piece, and then if Tassetti play, it's gonna be another version of the piece. You know what I mean? So I put the last word on the presentation about the endless result, right? The endless result of possible, like, musical possibilities, because I'm very happy with this work because it's very versatile. It's like, if I give this piece to other ensembles, I would revise it to match with the performers, to match with the players, and also the piece must come out from the conversation, like it must be out from me, go to them talk to me, and then we discuss, and then we fight, and then we find a way together. That's the peace. That's the aim of the collectivity, right? Because the piece couldn't be done only me compose one side or only them follow the written notation. Of course, I love notation. I wrote everything, but there's a space, there's an opportunity for them to recreate things from my notation. Does it make sense? Like the way I try to say is that, of course, if someone else, like not omnibus, play this work, we need to talk. We need to talk more, like what we would imagine to have it. So this is very important process, like to have dialogues, to have more than dialogues, like multiple conversations within the piece. So that's that's the idea. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so now we are on time to move on. Thank you very much, Piyawat. And Thanapat, if you are ready, you can take over.
Hi. How have you hear me? Okay. Okay. The sound's okay, right? Okay. Let's go. Let's wait a minute. Okay. We start. Okay. So hi everyone. This is my presentation about the tradition and innovation of the dual media art and music in general, actually. And this is more on my method of working with composer and with new media art in general. So I will walk you through how I work and plan things, and what is my thinking process to realize one work of art. Okay, so my name is Thanapat Ogaslert. My background is I raised and born in Bangkok, Thailand, so I'm native Thai, and I'm sound artist and technician based in Bangkok as well. So I've been experiencing and working with sounds, doing synthesizers for about 4 or 5 years. And I'm currently an electronics artist as Tastic Ensemble. Is very welcoming and very cheerful group of people that inspire me every kind of day. Okay, so in contrary to my works nowadays, I graduated from communication arts at Maidon University International College, which is I study film, photography, documentary, and later in the graduating years, I got into interactive and music. And now I'm shifting into Master of Music in Princess Kalayani Vivatana Institute of Music. So 2 years more for master. So that's enough of my background. So my main focus on working in general is human and surrounding interaction, which is using human senses to interact with either objects or plants or another human being, but in the different way that we use to communicate with them. So we have verbal, right? We have sight, but in another way, we can interact with other entity with like muscle tension, thinking, or like an electric signal that come from our brain that can be translated into another domain of communication as well. Okay, and gesture control translation for art in general. Okay, so these are two of my previous work for my thesis at the university. The name of the project called Chamber of Now, which is an exhibition on sound pollution and human awareness on the impact of the environment. Yeah. So this is a brief overview of today's talks. I will talk about how we can see audio as data and how data can be perceived as instrument. And the final topic is how to realize that into the things that we can interact and play with. And some extra topic about some my recommendation on the software and hardware that we can use. Okay, and Q&A, obviously. Sorry. Okay, first, audio as data and vice versa. So as we know, we as a musician, we play with audio, right? We play with vibration in the scale of air vibration from the instrument to the audience, which is transmit through their ears. So actually, audio can be more about audible sounds. Audio before is what pushed out by the speakers, it have to be an electric signal. And what is an electric signal? It's the same signal that we have in our brain. When our brain transmit it through our body, it's an electric signal also. Okay, so in this domain, we can do many things with the signal. We can perceive it as data. We can perceive it as an information that we can translate into another type of controls, something like that. And by looking at it as information, we can gain more insight about the process and characteristic of each sound or each action. At the same time, fluctuating electrical voltage in electric circuits can be seen as audio and information in the same time. Okay, hope you got this, because we will have this throughout the presentation. So I have some slides to you to see and perceive. The first one is the USB protocol that we use in like our keyboards and our mouse. And the second one is the waveform that we are using for synthesizers. Actually, in the first glance, you can see some similarities, right, between two pictures. We have kind of square waves on the top pictures, which is information, and on the bottom picture we have a bunch of waveform which represent the action of voltage fluctuation. So this is to make us see that it's actually the same thing that run through all wires of whether it's be webcam, whether it's be USB charger, whether it be keyboards, is the same as our instrument, and we can harness that power as well. So, but it's come with a little caveat. It's not actually that pretty and rose garden. We have a lot of noise in the system, and we have to work with that. So actually we can reject the noise or introducing the noise into the system in many ways. We can use filtering, like a low pass and high pass filtering, to scope only one frequencies that we want to work with. Or we can use clipping to prevent data overflow to limit how high is the data, or to spectral analyze the data that we got. So we can see on the right hand side, we have a waveform that are relatively not normal. The normal will be sine waves, square waves, the one that we seen on the previous slide, right? This one is the combination of many waveforms. So we use something called FFT, or fast Fourier transform, to analyze what frequency are appearing in our sounds. In relative to the first picture, in the bottom one, you will see it's like dissect the frequency into many harmonics. Okay, and after we got this information, we can envelope following or follow the amplitude of each frequency to have multiple controls at once. Okay, and if you want like some kind of random behavior, we can add back the fluctuation. We can add back the randomness to spice things up. Okay. Okay, this is my patch. It's a PD patch. If you work with computer music, you may know PD. So this I got this as a example for how I work with things. So this patch sorry. So for this patch, I have the audio coming in, and this is only analyzing the amplitude and the transients of the audio. So you have ADC on the top, as you can see, is audio analog digital converter, which is converting analog signal, which is audio waveform, into the digits that we can use with the computer. So a network below that ADC is how we analyze and how we sort the things out to be useful and be recognizable by the end of the software. So we can transform it into MIDI. We can transform it into control for visuals. We can transform it into sounds as well. We can transform it into the voltage for the modular synthesizers as well. Actually, as we got the information, we can translate to what we want to hear or what we want to perceive. But note that we got the input as well, so that contribute to the results. Okay, so next one, data as an art instrument. So as you can see, we have data coming in from the audio and the electrical signal, right? But how we can represent that in the sound domain, or how we can represent that in another way of not like a being and 1 and 0. So I have some videos that will show you and clarify this topic a little bit. So yes, okay, this is okay. This is one example of the having code as another platform of music performance. So this is come from Kingdom, which is my favorite artist as a live coder, and hope you enjoy his music a little. Okay. Is the sound present or they're silent? Can you hear the sound? Okay. The video sound, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, out.
Okay. So a little bit more. Okay, so just a little bit commentary about this performance. So the sound is generated by the computer, obviously, but the method that he interact with the sound is different from the traditional point of view. So in this performance, he take the role as more like the composer and conductor in the same time. So he can specify the live performance in the real time by using digits and using tables, using logic into creating a whole composition that can evolve from time to time. So you can see that he is ever so slightly change the chord from time to time, which affect the sounds. Okay. So when we have this in mind, we can think about rules and how we use rules to transform the sounds. Maybe we use algorithm, maybe we use the human side of imperfection into creating the sounds. Okay. So yeah, we can both do it in computer or in circuits. This is I have a selection of my circuits that I've been built through the years. So my latest one will be the left hand one, which is the heart sensor. So we can put the electrode on our arm or our organs like heart, and it will translate that into audio signal that we can use in our composition. So as I told you about the data analysis, we can use this to control the easiest thing will be BPM of the composition, or we can use that as a more like gesture control for a specified sound in your composition as well. So that is about the hard sensor one. The four on the right side will be like utilities, the mixing circuitry that I built in recent time. So I will show one of my works that realized the information into a sculpture. So this is the name of the work. You can see. of you like that. It's a translation of the piece into a motor movement of the Arduino, of the microcontroller. As you can see, there's a motor down here that you can see that it's moving according to the amplitude of the sound. Actually, we can map this into every characteristic of the sound that is present and in the input side. Okay. Another one will be my collaboration with Piyawat Louilarpprasert. Is this a realization of the Teletera, which is the piece on electric guitar, light, video, electronic, and orchestra. So my part is doing light installation and controlling the networks of multiple tens of lights. So you can see by here. Hey. Yeah. Hope you enjoy that. So yeah, we come back to tradition a little bit because there is some links between creating this kind of electrical circuits and tradition. Actually, tradition, for my opinion, is the certain way we perceive things and the certain way we act. And we can play with that as well. We can play with how we can transform the certain way we perceive things into another way of perceiving, or extend that senses, or extend that action into a bigger or different action. So therefore, it's the reconnection back of the human senses, right? So realization. So this, the left hand one will be the prototype of the Teletera, the light show with orchestra that you've seen. So this is me with Piyawat doing some prototyping and doing like wire works, creating the contraption of many plug sockets. So it's take a little bit of time. So the right hand one is a realization of my experimenting on sound waves with servo motors and action of the motor itself. Okay, you can see that it's kind of resemble of the living things. That is my point of view, that actually the things that we creating in this domain can be seen as pseudo life form. We can use this thinking to develop the piece that can have some kind of conditions, some kind of functions that can evolve itself into another stage on and on. And we can observe that progress from time to time as well. Yeah. So yeah, so we got into the last part of the presentation already. So the software that I use mainly is PD, Pure Data, the one that a lot of wiring, a lot of blocks. It can handle audio as well as MIDI, open sound control, and serial communication. Serial communication is very important. Is the S in USB. So USB is universal serial bus, right? Serial is the way that our mouse, our keyboards, our printer communicate with our computer. So PD can do all of that. And another one for the mobile side is a 6SIM app, which is I promote it so much because it's so good. If you want to work with the sensors on your phone, this is the way to go. It have all of the function. It have accelerometer. You can rotate the phone and it will send the values. You can check it. You can type. You can push on it. You can scream on it. The data will be transmitted into the program that you are setting for this for my application. I use Pure Data as a receiver. Okay, and last one, which I may notice that some of you may seen this already. This is Arduino. It's like if you work with audio interface, this is the interface for electrical circuits to talk with your computer. It's working with like motors, lights, or some kind of more advanced sensor like a heat sensor, humidity sensor, or magnetic sensor. Everything you can imagine, there is some modules to it. Okay, you can harness that power of the sensor and put it into Pure Data or your program of choice by using Arduino or another equivalent, which is like Teensy or Raspberry Pi. Okay, that is the end of my presentation. Hope you enjoyed that. Yep.
Okay, thank you very much, Thanapat. Very interesting, very insights. So, Piyawat, you seems like you have questions.
Yes, I have many questions. You can stop the sharing screen.
Sure.
Yeah, I have many questions, impression, reactions. I have many collective thoughts, you know? So it's like, first of all, great. Like, man, thank you very much for sharing this. It's a very technical things, you know, it's not easy to talk, to be honest. Like, it's a topic that you must be the one who make it so that you can say about
Yeah.
it, right? And then I can see it, you know, like from my experience working with you, from thanks to COVID. Actually, I mean, if no COVID, I wouldn't work with you last year, right? I would gonna like write only composition. Oh, okay, whatever. So I feel like, you know, I can see that you have such a creativity and also, you know, like a lot of adjustment in terms of like choosing material to work with, right? So you use data as instrument. You use languages, coding as structure of composition, right? And you present some of the work that you impressed by the computer, like the coding. And so just a little question. What do you think about the sound? Like you have such a, you know, very in how to say expert in working with techniques. But for example, the piece with the metal flower, it looks nice, right? But my question is that how the motion, how do you choose the sound for that motion? You know, like, because like the motion is like on off but there are so many different sounds happening, you know,
Yeah.
some like some kind of like people talking, you know, or like some kind of like small sound like tick tick tick, right? And then some kind of like large like electronic digital like, but how do you choose that? That's my question to you. So
Yeah. To be honest, that is my this is a crude prototype of the project itself. I'm planning to do much more elaborate in terms of the reactivity to do the sound. So for that piece only, it have only like 2 states, like maybe 1 and 2 states. So in the future, I planning to do independent kind of control of petals. So the 6 petal can react to each sound independently. But in the sound wise, I think that for me in that project I'm kind of just experimenting with the system and with not like the sound itself. But I think I will develop this one more onto more to be well-rounded. I think so. Yeah.
I think that's very nice because I can see, you know, the parameters that you choose. It's it's more likely bloom or not bloom, right?
Yeah,
But
that's 2 steps.
there is also the transition moment, you know, like
Yeah.
somehow it could make like slowly opening or slowly closing, right? It's just like maybe I just, you know, I just watch it and just let me think
Thank you
about
about
that.
it.
So what do you think about the transition, you know? Could
Yeah,
you consider the transitional motion to be a part of your exploration, and how?
sure. The patch on the PD is directly uh, react on the amplitude. So I didn't code all the motion by myself. It's a reactive process of the flowers. But yeah, as you point me that it's important to see the like the intricate levels of the movements. ครับ
Nice.
ผม yeah
Thank you. I will come back
thank you
with
very much.
some other thoughts. Thank you.
Yeah. Any comments or
Yeah, I mean,
questions?
Thanapat, I just wanted to say thank you for sharing your talk and you know this. It's not really a question, but just you know the reaction to your talk, and you know I'm sort of overwhelmed of this possibility, the possibility that you presented in the sound, like never thought or heard of, you know, changing the data into the instrument and create you know sound, but as well as the motion itself. And I would love to hear more about Teleterra, the piece that you did. I thought that was I thought that was like a fascinating. I know that we just only sort of a clip of it, but I would be curious to know more and potentially perform that piece and involve with the performance somehow. I think you know it's just like it really shows the potentials and possibilities, and I'm sorry that I'm kind of being ignorant with the terminologies and all the technical stuff that I'm not really familiar with.
That's
but like,
okay. That's okay.
Yeah, the possibility that you presented in the sound and how you communicate with the listeners through the sound is, I think, absolutely stunning. And I know I'm just so overwhelmed with the possibility. So thank you so much for sharing your talk.
Thank you very much. Actually, I feel the same way with when I work, right? I can see many routes that my work can go actually. and that is kind of a bless and a curse in the same time, because we have to be very precise in what we have a decision, right? Because there's so many ways that we can reinterpret or translate that into our works. Yeah, it's like another language that we can talk and construct words with that.
Yeah, but that kind of thinking process or thought process is something that we take it for granted as a musicians, because we traditionally, like where I am is to read the music and try to reproduce that, but instead of what you're doing is to really go beyond that, like, and you just thinking about what else you can do with the sound, what else you can do to kind of combine the sound with all the data or electrical signals, information. I think that's something that I'm really overwhelmed as well as inspired in creating the music and sound.
Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed the presentation. Hope it's been fun. Yeah.
Anyone has anything else?
Thanakan, do you have anything?
Oh, yeah. Actually, I don't have any question, but I just want to say that thank you very much for your creative, innovative, and very thoughtful presentation. I have to be honest, I'm not a really tech guy. Everything that made of electronic, and if I touch them, it tends to explode. So yeah, it's quite a gray territory for me. But actually, there is something that slipped through my mind. Like since the explosion of technology, that it is literally become our culture, like deeply. It just happened like in the past 10 to 20 years when the global population started to have approaches towards technology. Like back before that, you see like someone walking with like iPhone or something like that would be like very rare. Like smartphone, even internet, like back in 1970, 80, it was still kind of like impossible for some people. But anyway, I just want to ask, like, do you think that technology could be, I mean, I think it is already, but do you think like how could we go towards to the direction of make a use of technology as our extended language and or even extended culture itself?
So yeah, the language of technology is physics. Actually, is the how things are, how things communicate. Like we use computer, right? It's all physics. It's all electron running around to create a data that we see, right? In terms of having technology as a main language of human going forward, there is some trend of like sharing knowledge already in the computer or technology community. Is called open source. Open source is, you may know this, is the act of sharing your codes, act of sharing your works, actually, act of sharing your software to the world, and everyone can edit. It's pretty much like Wikipedia, but for technology. You can edit everything. You can download it down and take it apart and see what is happening in one software. Like Audacity. You may know as one of the audio program, right? Audacity is actually open source. So actually you can take it down and look inside what in Audacity program actually. So I think my recommendation to the newer people that come into technology and arts in junction is that uh, do not be afraid of trying something new, and actually, but be safe as well. Don't try to touch the live wire of the plug socket in your home. No, that's not no way to go like that. But knowing what are you working with, be safe and be fun at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, thank
I,
you so much.
I have something to add, because I think, you know, there's a word called expertise, right?
Mm.
Expertise in things, right? Like when we, like for example, Real, like he's a conductor, right? His expertise is in conducting. For Thanapat, like you are more like into, I wouldn't say the word technology, but I think you are more like a builder, right?
Mm.
You are more like a maker, like who make who use tools around you to make something happen, right? And for me, like, because it's a curse that I learned composing, so I have to focus on the sound or whatever, right? And then, but I feel like it becomes expertise, right? It becomes a language. It becomes a language that each of us use. And then once we join together, it creates a kind of culture. It creates a kind of a group of minds, right? A group of imaginations. So I think my question to everyone is that, you know, like, once, it's nice to have like such a diversities here, and how we can, you know, incorporate together. Like for example, when Rio mentioned about the Teletera, right, the piece for I would say that's a piece between you and me, Thanapat, because I think, you know, because I think like my function, my expertise is just to think, and I ask someone, like ask you, like, hey, let's do it together, right? And then, so I actually think also, like, if we go to Japan together next year, maybe we can have some elements from the piece, you know, like the Teleterra, and we don't have to bring the whole thing, you know. We could just like go to Shinjuku, you know, and then find like LED lights, and then we bring the box of Arduino together, right? And then like we go, and this is a collective piece, another collective piece. Like we don't have, we don't need a finished piece for now, right? We need material that we doing things together. So I think that's a kind of the way, the direction that I would like to propose for, you know, for our future collaboration. Do you have any thoughts on that, Real? Like how, I don't know, what do you think, like, that could be our future, you know?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, I agree with you, Piyawat. And like your piece, the collective piece, it's all about the dialogue. It's all about the conversation, with all of us, this diverse background, and working together to create, something that we all share. And it doesn't have to be complete, but I think the process that we want to experience, creating new sort of works, having a conversation together. So that process, I think, is more important than having like a massive piece like Mahler's symphony or Strauss symphony, right? I think that I also find the rewarding experience more, having this process, having conversation to create something with wonderful colleagues like you all, and it's like empathetic moment for me in the art and music experience as well.
Cool. Thank you.
Nice. Any more questions? Whoever? No? So I guess it might be it for today. So the next sessions that we are going to have is on Friday, 5th of November. There's going to be 3 presentations by 2 artists from Mudita, from Sean and from Marin, and also 1 artist from Thailand, Kun Tontrakoon. Yeah. So yes, true. And the final sessions for Friday is going to be a panel discussion for every artist. So it is going to be fun, I think. Very different kinds of mixtures and cultural thoughts and collective way of thinking, of course. So see you again on Friday.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thank you very
everybody.
much.
Thank you so much. Take care,
It's
guys.
been so fun.
We hang in
Hope
there.
you see. Yeah. Hope to
Goodbye.
see you
Bye.
soon.
Bye, Rio.